So, I actually want to know, how are you doing? I've spoken to Nick. He's doing fine. Dumi Barake, she's doing fine. Dumi's actually in America
In
right
the
now.
States. Yeah.
Virginia.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Had
She's
a
doing
long chat with
fine.
her.
Yeah.
Crazy. She's doing all the radio stuff like it's in the middle of the night over
Yeah.
there. And her kids were doing homeschooling, or signing into their school, but also in the like waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning or something ridiculous to connect with their classmates back in South Africa. It's insane. I'm just trying to avoid the question of how am I doing, Darren. Let's talk about everyone else you've spoken to.
No, how you doing? No, I want to know how you doing.
I'm
Because
fine,
I mean, if there's anyone who's the hustler, it's you, because you're the guy who takes, most people take one show to Grahamstown and then enjoy the rest of the festival, not Rob. Rob produces and directs and performs in 16 shows, 14, I think your record was. What's your record? Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
It's like,
it was something like
14.
that, yeah.
Yeah, 14
Yeah, something
shows.
like that.
So you're the
Yeah,
guy
I think
who's always finding a way. What are you doing? How far are you from taking the house away or kicking you out of where you live?
I think I'm fine. There was definitely some very lean months, and we had to scramble and do a lot of hustling to try and get through. Got a leave on the bond from Standard Bank. In fact, I got the 3 months kind of holiday, and they've just extended that last month. So that took huge pressure off me, because when lockdown hit, I was like, oh God, it was the first thought that crossed my mind. It was like, we're going to lose the house.
Yeah.
And luckily they did that bond holiday, which I think has saved us, got us through those tough months. I bank with FNB, and they did the COVID relief thing, which is basically a loan at a preferable interest rate. I wasn't crazy about getting into more debt to survive, but it's got me through. And now, I've managed to make a little bit of money during lockdown through online shows and the odd campaign, and now some work's starting to come in again. So I
Are
think,
you doing some writing work?
Yeah, I did. I'm trying to think. In terms of shows, I wrote a lot of shows. I wrote we did 3 Konantwaki shows. I wrote Gary the Tooth Fairy show for Bevan Cullinan.
Why did you write that one? How did that do, by the way?
It was. We didn't do huge numbers. Gary the Tooth Fairy character has been underground for so long.
Yeah.
It was kind of difficult to drum up the interest. The show was rad. I'm very, very proud of the show, and we did something very, very cool with it in terms of the online space, but just not as many people as we would have liked ended up watching it, sadly.
And
but it was
was that received well?
Yeah, it was pretty good. We did we did about 500 people on our first show, which was great, and then on our first 2 shows, somewhere around those numbers, and then a little bit less on our third, because Cyril did a speech, like he announced a speech 5 minutes before we were about to go live, and we were like, yeah. So that happened.
I want to know what's happening, but
yeah, a little bit here and there. Now there's like work starting to come in, so I think financially we're going to survive it. I'm going to get through it, and that'll be fine, and I'm not going to lose my house, and it's going to be okay. But to answer the bigger question, Darren, it's been hard, like emotionally, mental health wise. It's been a real journey.
Because let's face it, you had a tentative grasp on your mental health going into this.
Exactly. I'm not even joking about that. And in fact, I was like, I became acutely aware of how tentative that grasp was just pre-lockdown. And then lockdown happened, and I was like, oh, when I thought I had a tentative grasp, I realized I had no grasp whatsoever.
Yeah, where's that bag of marbles I needed to get through this? Don't have one.
It's been tricky, but it's been like it's been both good and bad. I've like had some periods of it, aspects of it have been absolutely amazing, and in many ways I feel like this pandemic has saved my life and my relationships, and this word's been used so overused, but unprecedented amount of time to spend with my family, to spend with my daughter. It's like the world literally had to pause, to be put on pause, and then you're just given this gift of time with your children, which wouldn't have happened otherwise. And
how old is she now?
She's 9.
Yeah,
she's turning 10 in September. Yeah, it's so much fun, and I would have missed so much, you know. Like I got months,
especially you, because you can't sit still. Even you're backstage at a gig, you're going to be performing to 5,000-6,000 people, and you're just scribbling stuff for the next show. You don't sit still. You're always at meetings and conceptualizing and writing, and then prep, and then performance. And so this whole sort of like put your life on hold must have been so much harder for someone like you.
It was,
someone who worked like, 9 to 5, 5 days a week.
It was huge. It was a huge thing for me to stop. And I mean, I say stop, but I still did a lot of work. I did a lot of creating through the lockdown, which I really enjoyed. But I did have to stop on many levels, and it was difficult, but really, really good for me. And I really enjoyed that time that I've had with my wife and my daughter. That's been amazing. So the work, like some of the work has been also incredible as well. Like, when you really dive into that online space, there's so much potential, and there's like what I really loved about it with the restrictions in terms of like how the parameters make the rules of engagement really clear, which in many ways it allows you to be looser creatively, like even wilder, which I really, really like, especially for the Kuna and Twaki shows we did, of like going, oh, okay, so we have to be in separate locations, but it's still a double act. We have to find ways to make that double act kind of clowning comedy double act work, but in different locations, online, with this delay, all that stuff. What would initially felt like, oh my God, this is going to be the most difficult, impossible thing, then became the fun thing about it. Is like, oh, so we can't, it's like, okay, so now how do we work out where we are in relation to each other, and like getting eye lines right, and working with the split screen, and then playing games of passing stuff to each other, and then the comedy that you can develop, all of that stuff became really, really fun. So creatively it was super, super interesting. But then again, I think I did that thing of doing too much. And about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I hit a wall, and I was just like, I've put in so much effort. I've just created and written so much and put so much out there. And I felt like at that stage, I just felt like I don't have enough to show for it. And I think it's also that, because of the isolation, because of the kind of existential threat and anxiety caused by a global pandemic, is it a lot of pressure for all of us to be facing all of the time. So I kind of burnt out a couple of weeks ago, I must say. And I'm now this week starting to come out of that and feeling strong again and positive. But that's kind of been the journey throughout. It's like, so you can go through so many in one day,
I want to go back a little bit. You say your relationship with your loved ones got a little bit stronger. Was that like prior to the burnout, or during or after the burnout? Or because I asked the question because I want to delve into that, because I found myself very lucky. I mean, I started a relationship and we're in the honeymoon phase as we go into lockdown, so it was an extension of that honeymoon phase thing. I also have a young daughter who's like, was just so pleased to have spare time with her dad, and so we really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. But I'm watching around me relationships falling apart. And at first I kind of relished it, and I was like, you see how many of you are in a relationship? And I'll tell you what.
You're such a dick.
No, not really, but it's like, this is people that present themselves as like, we're the models of society. Look at our home and our kids at the school and hubby and I, and I'm like, no, but you spend a maximum 20 minutes with each other every day, because he rushes off to work and you rush off to the salon and drop off the kids, and then he goes and plays golf and you do this, and you spend so little time with each other. Now that you are thrust into each other's company all the time, you have the sudden realization that you're in a relationship of convenience. It's convenient that you do this while I do that, and then occasionally we have some coitus, and with each other, which is so weird for our relationship, and and it's like I was witnessing relationships falling apart, long-standing relationships, and I felt guilty. I got to tell you, I felt guilty that I was getting stronger with my new partner and understanding, and with my daughter. And so I want to know from you, where you say you it's almost like a blessing. I'd hate to use that word, but it's almost like a blessing, this thing, because you got to have this with your partner and your child. When did that happen? When did that realization happen? Or how did it happen for you?
I almost straight away. Yeah, I mean, look, we do our little familial unit. We spend a lot of time together, and we all kind of always have. And if I do travel with my work, a lot of the time my family comes with me, and my wife and I write children's books together, and we do our kids show together as well. So a lot of the time when we're traveling, it's with that work. So we've always kind of spend a lot of time together. So it wasn't totally out of our what we were used to, but it was it's like a whole new slate of, like, especially for those first couple of weeks, like there was nothing to do. All the work that you had was gone, and now all of a sudden there was nothing. And so what do? You sit around, and, like, what I've realized from lockdown is that you can never play enough Uno. I am like grandmaster Uno level now. I've just had like another 5 rounds with my daughter. It's like a regular thing that we do every day. And in like back in the way that things used to be, you just didn't have that much time. And that much time is a luxury where you can really, it's like in the afternoon yesterday, just like lying on the grass in the sun for half an hour to an hour, just chatting, hanging out together. Normally there's just not enough time in the day, especially when you're out going places. Like I don't know how we used to do it back in the world, when you would have to drive somewhere and do something, and then drive somewhere else and do something. Like, where was the time? Like, even now, it's like a day flashes by. So anyway, I don't know. Initially, to answer your question, it was like straight away, I was like, oh wow, this is rad. You just get to spend so much time together. And outside of, I mean, it's so tricky, because this is what I was going to try to say earlier, is that it's so complex, the range of emotions that we've all been through on a daily basis throughout this lockdown, and they're all these weird juxtaposing kind of experiences and feelings all the time. Because on one level, yes, you get to spend some time with the people that you love most in the world, and there's almost like a clean slate there. But on the other level, it's like, oh God, there's everyone could die, or all the money's gone. Oh, the economy's crashing. So there's all these different kind of things. And I was immediately struck by, okay, so what is the most important thing in my life? The most important thing in my life is not necessarily the house that we live in. That is what I thought defined us as a family, and it's not. It's the 3 of us. That's what is the most important thing. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. And I think what I realized very early on, I've done a lot of therapy through this lockdown. I realized straight away, I was like, I had found a great therapist that I've been with for.
Tell me about that wall you hit. How did that pan out? I just need to know, because like I'm an artist like you, and I just need to know what are the signs. Are we hitting? Because you never know, you hit the wall. And it's normally a few days later, and you go, oh shit, I hit a wall.
Yeah, I realized. Okay, I'll tell you what's happened to me in the last 5 weeks. I got hijacked 2 weeks ago. My wife and I and my daughter went into qxBGV to deliver a bunch of kiddies books that we write, and a friend of ours who's the actor who does the isiXhosa version of one of our books was organizing a bunch of drama workshops and readings of the book for a bunch of kids. So we went in there to give books and to help with that. And on the way out, we got hijacked. It was an incredibly traumatic experience. So that happened
especially with the whole family. That must have been horrific.
Oh, dude, it was horrible. It was really, 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 really scary. Horrible experience. But what I realized also now, 2 weeks later, is that about 2 weeks prior to that is when I hit my wall. I'd done all this work. I put out all this creative energy. I was feeling very positive, but then I realized there wasn't enough financial release of that pressure. And I was tired, was burnt out from putting out so much stuff. And so for 2 weeks prior to that, I had a bit of a creative block, which I hadn't fully kind of recognized or acknowledged for myself. But in retrospect, I go, oh yeah, I was already 2 weeks prior to that feeling like a little bit lower energy, a little bit unmotivated, not as positive as I was in the preceding weeks and months. Then the hijacking happens, and that massive amount of trauma then triggers any underlying anxieties and depression that you might have and exacerbates it. And then I really, for a week, got very down, very, very down, feeling hopeless, not only about my own personal situation, but the situation we find ourselves in a country where the economy is collapsing. There's rampant corruption. Crime is just out of control. And having been in Gugs that day, seeing how people are living, it's just wrong. There's just no other way to describe it. Like, we did this workshop for these kids in this shack. We didn't have a floor. There's just mud everywhere. These kids couldn't even sit down. So you had all these different things of like my own stress and pressure, this anxiety of like putting my family in danger because we were doing this thing, this near death experience, and then the angst of seeing how other people are living and how the hell do they survive this. So then I crashed quite hard. And luckily I have access to this incredible therapist, and I do work with her, and I do a lot of TRE with her, which is tremor release exercises, which has really been amazing for me. And, the support and love of my family and my circle of friends has been huge. So I've tried to acknowledge really deeply, like, what did you experience? How are you feeling? And not react to it immediately. And that's something weirdly enough, I decided on the week 1 of the lockdown. I was like, the thing you got to do is just observe your feelings. Don't react to them, because there's too much going on right now. So I try to do a daily practice of going, like, just being aware of how you're feeling. Name it, see it, and let it go. It's kind of meditative, right? That's like the art of meditation, I guess. Yeah. And what was interesting for me is immediately you have this really strong emotion that makes you feel a certain way, and then you see it, you name it, and then it goes and it's replaced by another one that's almost completely opposite, but just as strong. And that was like a fundamental kind of realization of like, oh, what's happening right now is too big for you to just suddenly feel like you can get a handle on it. Like, just slow your reaction time down. And that has, I guess, helped me through it, and also being okay with the ups and downs.
That small piece of information, if you can have it written around on the house all the time, just so wherever you are, it's on your phone, it's on your hand, it's on your cap, it's on your clothes, it's on your walls. Just that little bit of, don't react immediately, just think, just observe.
Just think, just take a moment, observe it, let it go. And then there's something else that takes its place, And I think, like, I see it in the way that people are reacting, specifically online, is people are very reactionary, like super reactionary. And I think that's because
that's not new, right? That's been for a while, though.
Yes, I mean that's kind of how social media works. But it feels like it's been ramped up a little bit through lockdown and pandemic, and I think it's because of the pressure. Everyone's under financial pressure, and everyone's got this kind of existential.
I think that's just fear. You. I think it's just you and your big post. I think it was the Leon post.
Yeah, well, I mean that was
no one else was going through that, Rob. That was you.
No, but it was fascinating to watch the response to that and see how personally people took my apology.
I know.
People who the apology was not even meant
big,
for.
Right?
No, I didn't. I'll be completely honest with you. I thought my fear, my honest fear was that I would
Leon
get
would
pushed
be angry
back.
with you.
No, because I knew Leon would be okay with what I was saying because Leon himself did an apology for blackface 2 years prior to this. Back in 2018, when he was promoting Frank and Fearless, he spoke about it openly in the press, and he was like, I realized this is, I've crossed the line here. I don't want to offend my black fans. I have a huge fan base of color, and it's disrespectful. I don't want to do it anymore.
I say this to people all the time. We mustn't forget in South Africa that Panic Mechanic opening weekend did better in South Africa than the greatest performing film in the history of cinema, Titanic.
Yeah, dude. I mean,
it opened same weekend, and Panic Mechanic did better than Titanic in South Africa.
Yeah.
We mustn't underestimate, and that's across the spectrum. He was universally loved.
Stats are crazy. Like out of the top 10 movies that were made, his like biggest money makers in South Africa. Like 7 of them are Leon's movies.
Oh, his, yeah.
So
that couldn't have just been white racists. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I wasn't. As I was going to say, my fear when I made the apology was, I'm worried about a potential pushback from black people who might construe my apology as a mealy-mouthed, retroactive, insincere apology. Okay. I thought if anything, I might get that, and I've got to accept that because, that just might be how it looks, and I can't do anything about it. I'm making this apology because I feel strongly about it, and it's been something that's been on my mind for a long time. And I have very close colleagues in the industry who I know are uncomfortable with the fact that I did that. Black people that I love and respect, and that it's always been like an underlying little joke. And I felt like with the conversation how it was kind of happening in the public sphere, it was like, if I don't say anything now, I'm missing an opportunity to actually go, hey, I'm aware of this dynamic. There's a very specific dynamic. I'm aware of it, and I'm not happy about the fact that I did it, and I'd like to.
So it was a long time coming. So you expected, your black friends.
I was expecting maybe that. I totally forgot about. I didn't think about how white people would respond because I was like, the apology's not to them. I'm not apologizing to them. And then I got that pushback.
And you were accused of virtue signaling, right? Is that that was
all that stuff, virtue signaling. I've thrown Leon under the bus. I'm apologizing for being white. How dare I apologize on behalf of all white people for being white? Which I was just like, whoa, there's so many assumptions being made about why I made this apology, and a lot of it was just, as I was saying, I think an emotional reactionary response from people who are under a huge amount of pressure right now. And white people are very uncomfortable when the race conversation comes up.
Which character was this? Did I miss that, Leon Schuster? Which one was it where you did blackface?
It was his Shucks Your Country Needs You.
And which was the one where you played a black guy who became a white cop?
That was Copposites, but that wasn't blackface. That was like a body swap, one of those body swap movies. Myself and Civ.
But you don't think? But there wasn't there. I mean, isn't Black Voice like the new blackface?
Black Scent.
Oh, the Black
Scent. Black scent. That's what they say.
Help me on this, because I've eventually got to get back on a stand-up stage, and I'm like, I don't know what's the do's and don'ts. Do we know? Because I mean, you must know now. You've been, you had a baptism of fire on.
I think a lot of people like say, oh well, now we can't make jokes about anything. I'm like, you can make jokes about anything, whatever you want. I think you've just, as the comic, have got to be kind of clear about where are you punching? Are you punching up? Are you punching down? Who are you ridiculing? How do the power dynamics work within the context of this joke? And how do those play out within the context of society at large? So
with this new paradigm, like, you're one of the few comics I'm not worried about, because you're like the least offensive guy, and you're so playful, and if you venture into dangerous territory, you very quickly come out and you're supported by your wealth of material and your physicality and your ability to improvise. So like, you were the last person I panicked on. Like, if comedy goes through this entire process of, no, you can't, and I have to tell you, this is the one thing I remarked on when I went to New York in 2000 for another gig. It was a corporate gig, but while I was there for 10 days, I was flown there for 10 days, did 1 day's work, and I was there for the rest of the time. So I did all the things. I went to all the open mic clubs, right? And it freaked me out that in New York City, which I thought was quite progressive, and like, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere, sort of stand up. I was freaked out by the fact that Jewish comics only did comedy about Jews and Jewish, and then same with the Italians, and same with the Black comics, and I was like, whoa, we in South Africa, we have the spectrum where we can talk about a lot more than just our myopic view on life. But it seems that perhaps we were just a decade retarded in that, because now we're at that stage where you're going, where people are cracking their whips. Society, the audience, not audiences, not Facebook. The audiences are saying, I'm not so comfortable with you doing a colored accent, or I'm not so comfortable about you talking about lobola. You know what I mean? So our audience has caught up to New York, and is cracking a whip and saying, you can't do that anymore. And of which we respond to as comedians. We're like, okay, you don't like that, let me go here.
Yeah, Darren, I think it's interesting, because I think in many ways, our comedy scene is behind in many ways, certainly to how to a place like New York, which is kind of the holy mecca of comedy and where it's evolved. But in many ways, I think it's also cyclical, and I think that South Africa is actually quite, especially when it comes to race. And how we talk about how comedians in this country talk about race, we're quite highly evolved in this country, because of how diverse we are as a nation, and because of our recent history, and how we do grapple with the question quite rigorously as a society, because the wounds are still so fresh, because the power dynamic did such a major shift in terms of people, the majority being able to vote, but then also that the power dynamic in terms of the economy didn't really shift that drastically. The white middle class and white upper class still control such huge swathes of the economy. So I think we interrogate that stuff in some ways, especially through our comedy, on a much more highly advanced level than a lot of people in any other scene in the world do. And I think that's interesting that you say, like, when you were in New York, people, they kind of they've retreated into their little holes. And I don't think we do that in South Africa. And I don't think we're in danger of doing that. I think if anything, there's going to be some sort of a community audience and community policing, as well as self-policing of that dynamic that I was talking about, of like, okay, well, you can't just use a accent to get a cheap laugh, and what you're doing is dumbing down the person that you are representing, and you're making this generalization, and you're generally playing that accent as a low status person. that's being eradicated, which I think is fantastic. I think
it's great.
Yeah, that's great. I think you've got to be more complex about how you talk about race, but I think we are quite highly evolved. I remember doing a gig in Australia a couple of years ago at the Perth World Fringe, and I was talking about race at one point, and there was this guy, white Australian dude, who was heckling, and then after the show he came to me and was like, I'm sorry, he's very drunk and just a bit of an asshole, but he was also like, talking about race, and it's just not an issue for us here. Like, racism isn't an issue for us, which is like, if you've ever been to Australia and if you've seen what has happened to the Aboriginal people and how they have been practically decimated as a population and certainly kind of sidelined within society. It's like, you're only saying that, you asshole, because you're not being held accountable for the racist structure that you're living in, because this is one of those places where colonialism won. In South Africa, white people didn't have that luxury of going, everything's fine, we're in charge. Specifically in terms of comedy, we're quite highly advanced in terms of how we talk about race. And I think we're quite lucky as far as that's concerned.
I totally agree with you. But I do totally agree with you, because in these little pocket gigs that I did in New York, and there was a point there, maybe it's one of the regrets in my life, where one of the MCs said, dude, stay in New York. You've got a career because you've got a so different look. And you're such a breath of fresh air, and you could just do the open mics and a couple of gigs, stay for a month or two in Brooklyn. And then you can, like, this guy was like the New York MC, and he's like, anyway, I had to come back to South Africa. I didn't have to. I was filled with fear and the unknown. And so it's one of those regrets. You have a couple and you need to have them part of your life.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember coming back to South Africa and marveling at our diversity, because now I had witnessed the other side. And you're quite right. I completely celebrated the fact that Rob, Bevan Cullinan, Kagiso Lediga, Ronnie Mudimola, and Joey Rasdeen could go to Soweto and do a gig on a Friday night, and then go to Four Ways and do a gig on a Saturday night, and we rocked it. We all rocked it to varying degrees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But then, so again, that was back in 2000. We're now 20 years later, and so much has changed. And there's this cancel culture. You look at what happened with Conrad Koch and Steve Hofmeyer, and you look at what's happened with Deep Fried Man, and people looking at a gag that was done 10 years ago. And when you start losing your job and your income and you start getting canceled, it makes you shrink into those little cracks that make you work from these safe spaces, which is what I witnessed in New York. So I'm worried. I'm genuinely worried that that's where we'll go.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I don't think it's a great thing at all. I'm against extremism of any kind. I'm always encouraging the conversation to be more centric. And what was interesting about how people responded to my apology is that immediately they tried to push me into this far left category. And I was like, no, this is just a personal apology about something that I feel strongly about, that I did, that I'm not proud of. And I know it offended some people, and I'm apologizing to those people. But immediately, people want to push you into these, and a lot of people, were saying, oh, it's just because you're afraid of being cancelled. I wasn't. I don't think I was in any threat of being cancelled for one film I did in a Leon Schuster movie within the context of South Africa and how that stuff operates. I don't think I was in danger of being cancelled. Yeah. And that certainly wasn't what was motivating it for me. It was really about, I feel strongly about this, and I had misgivings about it.
No, what's weird is that you stood more of a risk of being cancelled after your apology than if you just left it hanging there. How weird is that? certainly from the white community. White people were they were saying, oh, we'll never support you again. And I'm like, okay, well, if those are the people who are cancelling me, that's fine. You can cancel me all you like. I don't need support from racists. I don't,
And that's not to say that everyone who's angry with me are necessarily racist. I just think that
but a little bit racist.
Just like a little bit, like that little, just the tip of racism.
There's a lot of you might not even know that you're a little bit racist.
Yeah, totally.
But,
Yeah,
you know, like,
it's
like, have you found yourself halfway through a gag going, "Oh snap, this is a bit racist. I can't do this." I'd be like on stage halfway through. Like, one of my things is like, whenever I'm talking about someone, like I'm telling a story, and this guy, this antagonist in my story, did this and said this, I default to deaf speak. It's like my instinct. I always go. And I said to him, I will park here if I want to. And he said to me, and I'm like, as I'm doing the gag, half the audience is going, sure.
I know,
like,
I know.
And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's wrong. Okay, and then I got to make a mental note. Don't do that. It's like for
but
20 years
I think that's the whole point. It is forcing us to think a little bit harder. I'm like, okay, well, maybe like poking fun at the way deaf people speak is a little too easy, and it's a little bit offensive. Like the gag is still funny. You can find, you can find better ways of doing it. So I think I don't think that you, for instance, are in danger of being cancelled because of doing that gag, and especially not if you're going, actually, maybe I should be thinking about this a little bit harder. So, it's that whole thing of like, PC, political correctness gone wild, and it's Stuart Lee's got a great bit about it, and it's like it's like people on the far right tend to think that anyone who is thinking about what they're saying, and if it's potentially like offensive, has now just gone politically correct.
Is being managed by the thought police.
Yeah, and it's like, no, we're actually just trying to evolve, and like we're trying to think a little bit harder about what we say.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
In actual fact, I am an extremist in that point of view. I support that. I say go all the way. Let's go all the way to one of my favorite. The movie I keep coming back to is Demolition Man, and Sandra Bullock's character in this completely sanitized future, where this troglodyte is introduced into this like speakers that say Mr. Carr, you've been fined $20 for using language, and he said, I said ass. I don't mind society moving to a completely over sanitized place and completely PC, and then rein it back and go, okay, cool. We can go. That's okay. Rather than us constantly, and it's been centuries, it feels of them going, they're not going to take away my flag. And that becomes polarizing and no conversation in the middle. So you're either one or the other. I'm okay with. I must have done. I've put my flag on the left, and I'm saying we'll go full PC. I don't mind sacrificing. I don't mind.
I think it is just about like thinking a bit harder. I mean, shit. Someone found a letter that I wrote, or that 3 friends of ours wrote to a friend at varsity, like first week of varsity, like just out of high school. And the amount of homophobic slurs that was in that letter, it's just like, I was shocked. I was like, this, I said this? And then you realize, well, that's how we spoke back then. And thank God we don't speak like that anymore, because we have been lucky enough to make like homosexual friends and realize, oh, this is actually really painful and hurtful to you. And you've been like, victimized for most of your life by society because it was accepted that it's okay to speak like that.
That was my last epiphany. That was my last one. Like I had to I had a debate with a close friend at East Coast, and I said, do I need to now drop that's okay? Because it said with the most fondness to people close in my circle. And somebody who reversed into the parking and then went straight out again and reversed again just to make sure they're the right distance from the white lines. And I just want to go, that was so gay of you, what you just did right there. And I know it's said with the most to me, to them, but I had the to and fro in the debate, and it turns out it is offensive. It doesn't matter. Even if the two of us in the canopy of a car, safe space, a friend I'm going to have forever, it was wrong. It is wrong.
Yeah, it's that thing a lot of people talk about a lot, is your intention. If your intention's good, no one gets hurt.
Yeah.
But it's more complex than that in terms of how oppression and microaggressions and how these things filter across society. And it's, you're only saying that if you're the one who's not being hurt by it. Oh, your intention was fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to apologize. Like, well, you're not the one I'm apologizing to, because you're not the one who was hurt. It doesn't matter how good my intention was. I know some people who I care about were hurt. And that's what's important to me, is that I don't hurt those people that I love and respect by being thoughtless. You know, I think I'm all for being thoughtful. Let's think harder. I don't think it means we have to be any less funny. I think we just be smarter.
That's us. But I'm finding places without offense harder to find. There's a very rarely pre-Rona, a bri you can get to before someone gets juiced and starts throwing around the K word, or racial or sexist, or I'm now I thought I was a raging feminist, and it turns out my partner has corrected me in those ways, and I am Padwan feminist. I am I thought I knew. I had no idea. I was talking to this chick about it the other day. What? Oh, you can't say, okay, oh, but but it's my friend. I said it to her, and like, no, you can't say chick. I'm like, okay. And I was on the phone to another friend of mine, and I'm like, hold on a second. I think the goose is calling me. Yes, baby? And it's like, no, goose is just like chick. Stop it. I'm like, I'm still learning. A bird. I'm still learning. And the spaces where you can go, like, what do you do when you're at the bride and they're on their third brandy and coke, and these are extended friends and family. I've got, the worst is now when it's family and they just go, well, it's just us, and I go, no, I got, and then you're having a fight at 11:30 at night. You're trying to negotiate with someone who's quite juiced. You can't use that language. I'm not comfortable with it. My black girlfriend is not comfortable with it. And my LGBTQ son is not comfortable with it. When are you going to get that into your head? It's like, there's no space.
It's exhausting. I find it personally exhausting. So I can only imagine what it's like for someone who is actually, on the receiving end of that kind of hate. It's like, I had a tough time growing up with glasses and being picked on, and I'm like, you had nothing.
You had nothing, my friend. With nothing. You 6'4", you were athletic. In Uganda. Give that a bash.
Give that a bash. See how much fun that is, my friend.
All right. So, obviously, you didn't regret your post. I'm glad you made your post. In actual fact, I stumbled across your post minutes after you posted it, and I thought, I was actually going to send you a WhatsApp and cuck you out, but for this. Because it was too long for Facebook. That goes to the website, and you tease it on Facebook. You don't post that on Facebook.
It's one of those ones that just says see more, and then it just scrolls.
It's like, no. And you had me. I was hooked from paragraph 2, and I'm like, shit, now I'm committed. Facebook is important. Facebook is like, okay, there's that. Oh, that's cool.
Well, my initial apology was very short, actually, but then I had this like torrent of hate, and I was like, okay, I have to think really hard about this and address, because a lot of the people kept saying the same things. So I was like, okay, I have to address the did I throw Leon under the bus thing. I'm like, no, I haven't thrown Leon under the bus. He's made the same statement himself. In fact, I feel very strongly about Leon's movies being an important kind of nation building thing. I think Sweet and Short is still an incredibly prescient and wonderfully nation building work of art for its time, blah, 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 blah. People talking to me about white chicks arguments. And I'm like, no, that's an ad hominem argument. It's a red herring. And so I had to address all this stuff. And that's when it became a long frickin' tome of explanation.
Yes, your second one was too long, but your first one was too long as well.
Was it?
I'm sorry. It was way like too long. No, you do 3-4 paragraphs, 2 pictures, and the rest on the blog. You got
Is it offensive for me to say you're just stupid, Darren? You're dumb.
It's just offensive. It's okay. It's just that.
I don't want you to know my intention is not
It
good.
depends. Are you saying I was born dumb, or are you saying that
No,
I
you've
become dumb?
cultivated through years of practice a very particular kind of dumbness through experience and practice.
I do remember. I have flashbacks to when I retarded myself. By the way, correct use of the word retardation there, by the way. That was the Elizabethan use of the word. You see how we have to justify, just in case. Yeah. Oh, Darren said retard. That's it. Cancel him.
Yeah.
That was like that was. I was still fighting the piece. I don't know what's happened to my cat. I was still. Hold on. Talk to me, Rob.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go. I was still fighting the PC culture when the Black Eyed Peas "Let's Get Retarded in Here" song had to be changed for the radio edit, and not just the radio edit, for their album. That when they re-released it, they had to take out "retarded," and I had fantastic memories with mates, nicely juiced, and the song would come on, and it would be our thing. Let's get retarded, and it means we hit the dance floor and we just wham, like crazy. And it was like a core memory. But I suppose it's the same way as, like, you know, we want to cancel R. Kelly because he's a monster. But you cannot take away his music from someone's wedding. You can't take it away. I got married and first danced to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like Michael Jackson, Billie Jean. I can't. You can't cancel Billie Jean. I'm sorry. I can't. It's embedded in my brain.
What do? We can't. Like, I Believe I Can Fly. We cannot support that. We can't support this man.
I don't support him.
Did you ever stop? Did you stop watching Woody Allen movies?
Also lucky in there that I'd never really enjoyed Woody Allen movies. So
okay, but you lucky.
I was safe. But
have you ever watched
think about it, like
Roman Polanski's?
One of my favorite movies of all time is The Party. Peter Sellers doing blackface, and like, it's an interesting example because now you would never dream of doing that. You couldn't. It's just like, why? Get it like an Indian dude to play the part. You don't need a white dude to play this part. It's stupid. Yeah. But it happened within the context that it happened, and it gave us one of the great comic performances of all time.
I know. It's like Mickey Rooney playing Japanese, but you're right. It was like, you know, if you were an actor like a Christian Bale or whatever, and you wanted to play a character, like an Asian character, but you know, like you said, like you played up. I don't know, rather than do a mocking version of another culture, but actually, you know, a heroic version. Would that be okay? I know there's a debate going on now about who gets to play Boy George, because there was a casting for, he wanted a girl to play him because he was quite an androgynous, almost sexless youth. And people were getting upset about, no, you can't have a girl playing a boy, you know. There was like a real upsetness about that. How do you feel about Johnny Depp? Not Johnny Depp, Robert Downey Jr.'s black guy in Tropic Thunder. Like, to me,
again, it's like,
like, could he do that today?
I don't think so. But it's a great performance. It's a great comic performance. And the idea behind it was, you know, he's trying to ridicule exactly that, the whole blackface phenomenon and white people's
that's what I mean, for that
ideas
reason.
And representation of but I think we're at the point now, and again, it's about context, is like, you can go to great lengths to make a very clever point about why you want to justify blackface within this particular context, but it's also like, it's been done enough. Like, do you really want to fight that hard for your right to do that? It's like, pick something else, you know?
No, you're quite right.
For now, maybe we'll get to a point where it equals out again, and we don't have to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
But it's not now. Right now, it's like, let's sit back and listen and like acknowledge people's pain. There's a lot of people who've like suffered.
But for the record, we're still allowed to dance to Billie Jean.
At home alone. I don't know. I think we are, eh? I don't know. I'm not putting. I refuse to make an official statement about this. I have to talk to my lawyers.
I said to you, I'd ask you. I was supposed to start this interview. We've got like no time left. We've used up the second hour. So okay, so here we go. Here's the 3 questions I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
With every interview, you got to ask like these questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what song was playing in the background on your first kiss?
Ah, shit! I remember. I was used. What was it? I want to say Billie Jean now.
Yeah, that's understandable. It was probably playing afterwards. I'm aging myself, but mine was.
You know what it was?
Baby Jane, Rod Stewart.
Baby Jane. I think it was Forever Young, Alphaville.
Nice. I won't be forever young.
Do you really want to live forever? Who would never?
Bet you they didn't know about the Rona when they wrote that one.
No.
And then the next question was going to be, but this is easy for you because you like, you're one of the nice guys. You'll actually cry in a movie. But what was the last movie you had a good cry in?
The last movie?
Yeah. And cry because of the movie, not because the world's falling apart around you. That doesn't count. Can't be halfway through Issy Dingo going, this is fuck.
I remember the first movie I ever cried in was The Champ. Do you remember it was a boxing movie with that little kid who was in Silver Spoons? What was his name?
Yes. Oh, I know you're talking about blonde-haired boy.
Yeah,
and then his dad played by John Voight.
Yes.
Was it John Voight who was
Scout's Honor, where he just wanted to be a scout, and he got his scout uniform and he put it on and he cried in front of the mirror, and I bawled.
Please, Champ. I'll do whatever you say. I won't eat that much.
If you go through Champ without crying, you're not human. I'm sorry.
You're not human. No, you're an animal. Yes. The last thing I cried watching was every single episode of Queer Eye. Every single episode, I cry my eyes out in that show. Really? I love it. Yeah, I love it.
I didn't get into it. Is it kind of like, isn't it like they step in and they transform someone's life? Like their look?
Yes. Have you not seen it? Dude, you got to watch this show. You got to watch the show. It's beautiful.
Queer Eye for the Straight Guy.
It's so beautiful. I love it.
Are they also breaking down barriers at the same time as like transforming people's look?
Exactly. Okay. It is about inclusivity. It's about understanding LGBTQ+. It's about everyone coming together and like acceptance. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Every episode,
and they're amazing. Without fail, I've watched about 3 seasons. Every episode I cry. It's beautiful. Yeah. But Darren, I have to go. There's someone at my gate.
Okay. Well, last question. Who do you want to sacrifice to save the world? Does Corona end tomorrow or the human sacrifice? Who is it? Answer it and answer your gate.
No one.
It must be one.
I think whoever. No, I mean, obviously, I want to say Donald Trump, but I think like we get rid of Donald Trump, there's going to be
another
arsehole to take his place, and we get rid of Corona, there's going to be some other disease that's going to take its place. It's like, let's stick with what we've got and try and work through it and find the solutions we need to find to solve this problem.
Best answer. Go answer your gate, Rob. I love you. Thank you for chatting to me.
I love you. Thanks for having me, Darren. Cheers, buddy. Bye.
There's Rob. He's going to go answer his gate.
Yeah. That was good.
Yeah. You thirsty?
No, dude, I watch these things in full. I think I'm like the biggest fan of this podcast myself.
Listen, I still need to do another video, and I have to have dinner uninterrupted with Anna and the mouse tonight because I'm in the dog box.
Yeah, that's fine. Cool.
Love to the missus. Send my love to your sister.
All right, lekker. Love you. Bye.
Love you, bye.